Sorry, I don't have a camera. And we're live. Halfway through my sentence. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Got several people in the chat. Ezra's here, Brian Ball's here, Cranky Rider, Strider Talk. That's my buddy. And thanks for hanging out. We're just going to be chatting. The only thing I told them, my guest here, Tonic Mole, was that I'm very bad and very not interested in blood sports. So it might have looked like we hyped it up, maybe like we're just gonna there's gonna be a bloodbath. I don't know. Maybe he's just gonna tear me a new one, and I'm caught completely flat-footed. But I think we disagree, and we're still gonna have a fun time. So that's my impression. How are you doing, Tonic Mole?
Doing great.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a weird time to I guess it's never not a weird time to be doing crowdfunding, but
yeah, or comics in general.
Yeah,
that's weird. It's like the industry is never like settled, where it's like, oh, this is all working great. It's like there's 1 year that's great, and then it's disaster the next. It's like constant turmoil.
Yeah. And America is such a weird place to be doing things anyway. Like it's always been. This is my conspiracy theory. Like it's always been a little too bottlenecked, I think, for my liking, for the size that the country is, at least since the 70s, I guess. So when there's pain in the industry or just in the world at large, I think comics as a whole feels it harder because it can't adapt, the way you and I can with our, kind of ground level stuff.
Yeah, you look at like the history of comics, and so it's young, super young. Like as and it's different than you say movies and TV are as young, about the exact same age, but
good point.
Those was staged, like it happened before, they just didn't film it. So there was one aspect that's different. So like movies really came out of the gate. Like, I was talking to someone there watching Gone with the Wind, and they're like, this is a good movie. I was like, no shit. But, comics, though, there was political cartoons and stuff, but in comic book form, it's very young. So I think we're seeing this really harsh evolution in a modern era, and it's because, we go, 1930s was a long time ago, but it, no, it isn't. I mean, most other mediums have been around for, hundreds of thousands of years, and there's forms of comic books, but I mean, comic books are kind of specific. But
well said.
So but certainly now with massive the IP, the value of IP has become a really weird thing for comic books because they're interested in the IP, but they're not interested in comic books because the comic books somehow don't make money, but the IP does. It's a very bizarre situation.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And so but it's a very, very complicated ecosystem for no money. There's nothing as complicated as the ecosystem of comic books while making almost no money. Like there's nothing like it. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's because one of the things that fascinates me is when professionals get into crowdfunding. Let's just say when anyone gets into crowdfunding, you see a lot of first of all, I gotta highlight this. you got some more support in your side of the ring. So I think it's funny that people who grew up on the big two, when they enter crowdfunding, it's like a 50-50 chance at best that they're going to do a superhero story. And if they do a superhero story, it's going to be with a greater distance to it. I don't want to like Saving the World seemed. The impression I get from Saving the World is that it's kind of reflecting on the medium as a whole, like, or the narrative, I guess, the genre, I mean, as a whole. And people are kind of like reflecting on like, well, what is this, like the Chicken Book. Like people just taking like the interesting new stabs at it where it's not just a
Yeah.
straight, you know, this sort of thing
Yeah,
you could see from the big two, which I think is kind of weird, but I think but I also like, not being a huge superhero guy, is that
Yeah.
people are naturally finding a lot of different ways to tell stories, I guess, once they free themselves from the expectation of what big two.
A bit of the irony is that I was into superheroes when I was like 13.
Yeah.
And I like I like characters like Batman and stuff. I don't read the comics really. I don't care about the monthly going on and stuff anymore. But when I was a kid, I loved them. But then when I 14, I discovered the Crow and the Max and Ghost World, and it just snowballed. And I hated superheroes because they were the enemy. They were sucking up all the money, and there was really good writers creating this indie and underground stuff. It was that whole preps versus the grunge kids, whatever. At the time, that was a long time ago. And but
I dig it.
I'm 39, so
yeah.
During this whole time, it was Kurt Cobain and that whole deal. So there was a very, very strong narrative of very much us versus them, because it was. Oh, I don't want to get to this yet because it's my point on professional. Or
how about I distract you for a minute? We got some people in the chat. Man, we're having fun in the chat. This is
dang,
great.
I can't even see the chat. Do I gotta go for that?
I recommend. You don't see it over on the right hand side. I guess it doesn't do that for you, does it?
Not in StreamYard, no. Wait, live? Oh, it's on live comments. I'm just stupid.
Oh, that'll do it. So we got people ready for silly goose time.
Oh yeah, we should probably get to the whole professional bastards.
Yeah, let's
and crowdfunding.
That's fine if you're ready. If that's your point. I didn't want to.
I'll go yammer on forever. We need to. You guys, you're my what's that called? A handler.
Sure.
Yeah, keep me on track.
Okay.
Okay, so professionals entering crowdfunding.
Yeah.
My hot take is, first off, it's not a professional I have a problem with, right? That's fine. And I back people that I would argue are pretty much professional. Brian Polito and Jimmy Palmiotti and stuff like that. I've backed their campaign. It's no big deal. However, there's a difference between saying, should this guy enter crowdfunding and what we're going through now, because it's not just this guy. It's not just one dude, which I don't care. I mean, it's a free country.
Okay.
It's what's happening is a lot of them, right? Especially right now, they're kind of getting a wake-up call because, all of a sudden, boop, it's gone. And they see a lot of money. And that's why they started to give those olive branches out. Because, and that olive branch, keep that. That's point number one. Isn't that weird that the worst enemy of...
Wasn't that that was pretty surprising, right?
Yeah, it is. No, not to me, no. And here's another thing to keep in mind, the whole thing. George Carlin, when he said, it's a big club and you're not invited. Keep that in mind, how the people who appear to be sworn enemies suddenly can get along just fine. Though the people, the fans, the fan bases are still supposed to, be cutthroat.
Okay.
Professional comic book artists and it's not all of them. There's some I get along with great. On a whole, we're talking about the whole idea. They are in a club that we're not invited to. If you've worked at Marvel and DC or even Image and stuff like that, you can get into that club. Otherwise, you're not invited, and it has special rules. For instance, take the ex-DC Comics guy. I won't say his name, but you know who he is.
Yeah.
And, hated by pros everywhere because he says mean things on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
They will welcome him with open arms without even blinking. So here's my...
I think so, yeah.
But they won't welcome us. Now, I'm not even part of any of that thing, but I will be treated worse than he will. And I'm not even part of any of that. I'm an underground comic artist from the 90s. I like time traveled here, so I don't even know what the hell's going on. So
you and me both, man.
Here's what I predict would happen if more and more professionals. If you can't see it, fortunately, I'm doing hand signal like Bernie. Anyways.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
So I'll tell you what is going to happen.
Yeah.
In the future.
So if the pros all come in.
Someone's got to be Bernie right now. Bernie's gone, so it's
he's
fine.
down. So I'm the new Bernie of comic books. So okay. Anyways, here's what I predict would happen.
Yeah.
The pros would start to coagulate, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would see them working on each other's projects and all these types of things, and it would all seem totally okay. The first thing that's going to enter their mind is, why is my comic got to sit there on Kickstarter right next to some guy who calls himself Tonic Mole and just draws a bunch of boobies? I'm a professional comic book artist. I want to crowdfund, but I don't want to be hanging out with peasants all day.
Okay.
But
so it's a class struggle. Okay.
There's a class struggle. Always a class struggle.
Okay.
The next thing, they're all going to get together. They got money. They got power. They got influence. They're going to start a curated crowdfunding site that's not Kickstarter or Indiegogo. They would start their own, right? So that you go there to only peruse professionals, right? So you don't have to wade through all the others. It could not be exactly that, but that's kind of the type of thing that happens in these type of situations. You could almost look back at the 90s to when indie comics, but more like underground. I mean, I don't know. The naming is all difficult, but alternative comics, the more subversive stuff, was becoming very popular. I mean, you had guys like, there's Terry Moore, but then there was IP that was Dark Horse had quite a bit, The Mask and stuff like that. And Ghost World, of course, was made into a movie, The Crow and all that.
Oh, yeah.
That was huge IP, came out of nowhere. And that's scared to live in hellland of DC and Marvel, who were, that's what their gig was IP. All of a sudden, you have Vertigo, DC Vertigo, right? That didn't super end up great, because what they were doing was just smothering the competition. Vertigo didn't improve anything. What they did was say, how can we take this pure thing, package it, smother it, kill it, shut it down, and then get back to making IP? And in no way do I believe any of this is malicious or intentional. I don't want to get the idea that they're all sitting there, how can we destroy this? No, they think they're doing good. And I think that's a lot with when you have the two largest conglomerates swinging anything around, accidents will happen. They're like Frankenstein playing with a little girl. He didn't mean to snap her neck, but she's so brittle. And so,
yeah. I'll let you finish.
No, that's all. I was going to ramble on for 2 hours.
Well, so the way you're seeing it, well, okay, maybe it might be too early just for me to even try to frame it. I think it's fair if I let you know my particular view, and then maybe you can just kind of demonstrate to me where you think we're disagreeing. Because so my view is that the customer has been in the driver's seat all along, and if they I think a lot of these people are going to come over and like the Batman White Knight guy, Sean Murphy. Yeah. He thinks he's going to make $500K at least. He might. I think he's going to make six figures, but I think he thinks it's 2018 and he can just kind of all shucks his way in with a smile and in a dream, and it's going to be golden. And I don't think that's the case. He clearly, with that weird lukewarm video he put out a couple days ago where he's like, I don't know, my friends are telling me it's not a good look to crowdfund and make a lot of money. So I don't think a lot of people are inspired by that kind of confidence. So I'm gonna guess 150K. I don't know, but for most people, I don't think so. He's going to be bringing in, because I think the the backers are still the drivers. I think for the people kind of like who he seems to be for the most part, even though he's been a little wishy-washy in the past, and I think that's going to get him book one. But for the most part, I think people aren't going to find him particularly special, I guess, more than you or me, even though, I mean, we're 4 figures. He's going to be 6 figures, maybe 7. But I guess what I'm trying to say is no one's being pressured to back him because he's a professional over, or I don't know, maybe they feel pressure, but I think it's self-imposed. Maybe because they feel like, well, he's going to give me a better product, I suppose.
Right.
I feel like I can trust him because he's got his, 25 years of experience or whatever it's going to be. But that's part of his asset that he's helping to serve the customer with. Like, I guess I'm being very proletariat here, and I'm saying they already own, like, they can't do anything without people freely just saying, oh, you know what, that looks like a $40 book that I'm going to back. That's only 64 pages, but it's hardcover, and it's going to be $15 shipping for some reason. Like, that's what he's going to do. Right. And no one told anyone that they had to. You know what I mean? So that's kind of my view. Maybe that's more of a classically liberal view take on this whole thing. But I don't see anyone, like, everyone's just looking for quality. And if he's going to be professional about it, then and delivers on time, then he's going to get rewarded with a book too. But if he's not, he's going to fail just as much as the next guy, I think. So that's me. Now,
you have a good point.
You can take the mic.
Okay, you have a good point. It'll probably fail because if these comics was going to succeed, they wouldn't need to go crowdfund, right? I mean, there's no benefit to them crowdfunding. Like,
you think so? Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't they just print? If I was them, I would just go print it and put it in comic book stores. It's a little crazy, but they think they look at other unnamed ex-comic book artists and go, oh, that guy does great. It's like, yeah, he's also a YouTuber. This is it's comic book merchandising. He's not a comic book creator anymore. He's a YouTuber. And a very he's not selling comic books. He's selling, it's outrage culture, which, I mean, to be fair, that's what they do over in mainstream comics. Just pointed at the other direction, right? But
and people want that's the thing. Like, if they're selling hot dogs, I think the hot dog is the YouTube content, which is free. And we people eat it up. You and I get the impression you watched a lot of it. Maybe you watched less of it now, but you got into it, and I got into it too. And I guess
I've never seen any of it.
Okay, wow.
I saw one just like
Okay, but if he's serving people with free content every day for 2 years, I mean, what's $25? You know what I mean? So I get the model makes sense to me, even if it takes, especially if it takes a year to put it out, because that's part of the whole hype of anticipation. I don't think that's a good comic book model, but I think it's a great merchandise model. So anyway, back to you.
It's a fine, and that's what, I'm torn. On the art side, I say burn them all. And then, but, as like business, business is business, and it, it's working very good. I think the person I respect the most when it comes to that type of stuff on the Brian Pulido, that dude's fought for his life, like, ever since he started. And he was shipping comics from his apartment building, not with no crowdfunding. This dude was doing it old fashioned, like,
he's amazing,
distributing himself. And and then held on to that IP. That's what I'm most impressed with. He sold a lot of it, but he sold what he had to stay alive and stay afloat, and then hit the convention circuit to stay alive. And then he got publishers to take this and that, but he held on to Lady Death because he knew that was where the money was. And now he's making, he has a huge staff, so I have no idea what profit is on all that. But 300 and some thousand for every 40-page comic. I'm pretty certain my Saving the Worlds will start to be 40. I was looking at my script and I was like, oh, there's no way it'll fit in 32. But
you better break that down into 12-page increments.
Oh,
what are you doing there, buddy?
I'll be okay. I'll draw faster. And so but having said all that, business is business. But yeah, I believe you're correct. In my scenario, they succeed. However, you point out, well, probably not, because it is true that there is a lot of what's that word? Hyperbole and stuff. I'm sure that's pronounced different, but there's a lot of that type of stuff that is actually fueling these things. And I'm friends with some video game streamers and stuff.
Oh, cool.
And, they sell T-shirts.
Yeah,
that's exactly what this is. They ain't they are not in the fashion industry. They're not T-shirt manufacturers. They're video game streamers that sell a T-shirt as merchandise. And that's so when you have these guys coming in from mainstream comics going, hey, I'm going to do this watered down thing because I don't want to get fired by my major guy and sell it here. And it's like, oh no, you either got to be crazy or you have to be crazy and have a YouTube channel that you build up this base, and then they buy the comic to support you. You can, but you're right. The reality is, they've already been trying to do this. I think Gail Simone tried a few different, not really crowdfunding, but it was that similar, online based thing with Lions Forge. And it became clear that mainstream doesn't thrive here. And I mean, that was very similar in the 90s and stuff. Whenever this is Ninja Turtles. People talk about Image saving the comic book industry, but the industry was actually dead in the 70s. And then there was the black and white revolution in the 80s because of the Ninja Turtles, and everybody's like,
I saw you made that point. That was a great point. Yeah.
And that fueled up all the way up into Image, to where suddenly they're like, hey, you know what? They probably never mentioned Ninja Turtles, but it had to be in the back of their head somewhere.
That's a great point. It didn't come out of nowhere. Yeah.
Right. And by the time they started Image, you've got a massive cartoon. You got this huge toy line. These guys come from just started a comic by themselves, distributed it themselves, and built all the way up as to, they only had one major IP, but it was a hell of one, and probably more profit because they don't have to make a bunch of Aquaman crap just to keep they only had Batman in a way.
But so your theory would be that once Image happened, that would be, just to be consistent with how you're describing things today, Image showing up would be the pros saying, hey, we can do what the I'm learning. I say indie because every other industry in the world, indie means
underground.
But in comics it means everything. It could be, you could be working for the man, it's just not the big two.
Right,
but
not a massive conglomerate. It's a kind of bizarre. I really hate the wording, but
I guess like Image said, hey, we can be like those underground guys.
Right.
And then they broke free after the underground people did the R&D, I guess, the blood, sweat, and the tears, and they learned the hard way how to do it. And then that kind of shut. Like, what was the 90s like? I mean, did they die out, these DIY, the underground stuff? I feel like they were both around.
Yeah, really, they both thrived during the like that mid 90s and stuff, and it was really DC and Marvel that got hit the hardest because suddenly you had, and it is hard to know whether my concern. Well, no, here's would be a great example of what happened then. So everybody goes, well, in the 70s is when the direct market was created, started. It's like, yeah, but that's not what we have now. We call something a direct market, which is ironically the complete opposite of a direct market. So you have in the 70s, they had the idea of a direct market and a newsstand. And once Image started, DC and Marvel started to think this is hard to compete with. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was like 94, 95. that Marvel was the first to go exclusive to Diamond. There was no newsstand, I think.
Oh yeah.
And everybody else
you know
followed.
this stuff more than I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody else followed. And that's when the late 90s, maybe mid 90s, is when suddenly there was this exclusive direct market. There was no newsstand versus the direct market, because they'd have ones that said direct market printed on the corner. Those were worth more because comic book stores took care of their comics better, and the newsstand would be worth less because they were usually roughed up or something. And so anyways, they went exclusive to Diamond, and it's ironic that, I mean, within years the market completely crashed and there was no new customers. And that was 25 years ago, and they're like, I wonder what happened. I don't know, but man, it seems like a pretty clear cause and effect that they cut off the possibility of new because nobody can just go to a grocery store and collect issues to get into it further. And they allowed Diamond to have a stranglehold. Now, suddenly, Diamond was the exclusive one. I'm not getting into Diamond. They can, and even if I did, I'd be lost completely because nobody will make it back to the Tonic Mole section. And there is, and comic book stores they're just to blame. This is even more controversial. You know, everybody's like, the poor comic book stores. No, they made a bad deal, and they won't order outside of most. There are some, but they're not anywhere we all live. I mean, if you live in California or New York or something, certainly there's really good comic book stores. But the primary ones that are actually selling Magic cards now, they won't order unless it is Diamond. And so most of us were pushed down market. There's a lot of us that should be on the comic book shelves. We're not, and it's not because we don't make the comics or whatever. It's because they created a market that excludes us.
Well,
and that was publishers, not creators.
I feel like a lot of this has to do. It's almost like a chicken or the egg thing, which is fine with me. But because I'm not sure if the American comic book market has really wanted comic book content beyond Big Two content for. I mean, I'm talking about the majority of the comic book consumers, probably since the 60s, 70s, I guess, since the most of these places that were providing alternative content shut down because of the regulation stuff, the Comic Book Authority stuff. And then I think a desire just disappeared because they just went to other industries to get their pulp fiction and their horror and the comic code helped a lot because the 60s, the whole point was we don't have the comic code so we can do whatever we want. Of course, they were doing totally different comics, but they were successful. And the 70s, everything was dying. But then the 80s, the indie market came back strong with Ninja Turtles. And then 90s, of course, everything did good, where you had Kitchen Sink Press with The Crow and stuff like that. Oh, yeah.
And Image, they count. They were pros that went, slumming it, but some of them weren't. Sam Keith wasn't necessarily.
So there was like room for both, I guess, right? And they were both in comic book shops, which is kind of crazy.
And almost Max alone, I have to salute Image a little bit, and and then and I sound like I hate everything, but I collect 90s Image and stuff like Gen 13 and stuff because I loved those comics because they were very interesting and unique, and you kind of see the of course it's back then you could get interiors by really good artists. You open one, it's like, oh, Adam Hughes did the interiors. Campbell. Now that ain't gonna happen. And but yeah, the 90s was really probably the heyday because you had indies selling in the millions, which was never happened before. And you look at the top 10 comics in the 90s, and it's why DC, Rob Liefeld said that they killed Superman because DC and Marvel were freaking out so much they killed all their main characters trying to get a little bit of buzz. And there's Lady Death up in there. You got a guy who's in his apartment shipping comic books, and he's beating the Big Two, like hands down. Like selling in the millions. And that didn't, that lasted for a little while. But even into the late 90s, indie, black and white, and all that stuff was Fantagraphics. They were doing really good. But then really, it is hard to say why the market died in 1999. Was it because comic books were Beanie Babies? A little bit. The death of Superman, everybody bought it thinking it was going to be worth a bunch, and it's not because he didn't die. And I remember I bought Witchblade #1, and it was like the next week worth $50. And
wow,
I think a lot of comic artists, especially like big fans of the 90s, they want to say, well, the comics were so good. It's like, oh no, most were bad. They were real. They were just, there was Daredevil in mech armor. It was whatever, because it was so competitive, but also they were trying to mass produce so many comic books, and even Image even fell to it. Their comics were almost unreadable after the first 3 years or so. Because Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, they can't draw everything. And they were running a business, so they couldn't do 20, 25 pages a month. And they didn't even have one. They each had like 3 or 4 different series. It was impossible. So they were hiring anybody they could. And so the consistency was horrible. And
and I hear that they were missing deadlines too, and kind of getting things.
Feel like crazy. When Rob a lot of people that Rob Liefeld, his Captain America that he did for Marvel, and they always post that picture. On one hand, when Rob Liefeld, like before the Deadpool movie, he was super nice, and he just reviewed TV shows he watched on Twitter. And every once in a while, someone come, oh, what about this? You drew the Captain America. Hey, I guarantee you he didn't draw that. There's no way. He hired a ghost artist, and now he's playing for that for the rest of his life.
Oh, no.
Because
wow.
He has some inconsistency to his work a little bit, but he's rarely is he. And then you look at like the first, like some of that interiors, and it's some of the best art I've ever seen. Like there's this one where some superhero, I don't know. I think it's Captain America, and he's chokeholding someone, and it's a big spread. It is the most amazing art I've ever seen by Liefeld. And that's the same run where all of a sudden there's the super big chest thing. This is all suspicion, but in the late 90s, even early 2000s, there's artists that are often late, and I'll see art that I'm like, that looks definitely like somebody pretending to draw like them. Like you can kind of tell the difference. Like it's
that makes sense.
Yeah, there's less confidence in the lines. Like it's not their style. Anyways, that's off the deal.
So the impression I'm getting is that Image sold a lot because people liked what they were getting, and I don't know if they were necessarily buying less of the underground stuff. I mean, maybe they were. But didn't it bring people back to comics in a way? Like they were like, "Wow, everything feels a little edgy now. I'm gonna buy more." I don't.
Yeah,
see, I've never been like a American comics guy, so I'm just kind of like wondering.
No, everything thrived. And really, Marvel and DC like going, oh no, we're not selling. They were complaining they weren't selling as well as Image, but they were. 150,000 was pretty normal for them.
Wow.
They just wanted to jump on that bandwagon because so much indie IP was selling huge, and underground was thriving like crazy. Everything thrived in the 90s, but the market was big when everybody showed up at the same time. It wasn't a dead industry, and then these guys come and kind of revive it. Like Image didn't revive it because it was for some. And it's hard to say. I don't know what it was about the 80s, like with Marvel, where all of a sudden they started selling millions of issues of Spider-Man and X-Men. But the highest selling comic of all time, I think, is X-Men or something with Jim Lee. And I think it was that at the time, if you look at comic book artists, we all pretend like they're all really good. But if you look at 80s comic artists, not really. I mean, as far as like fine art, they're not fine artists, really. But then all of a sudden you have Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and stuff roll in, and they're crazy, crazy good. at that time, it was like shocking. And I think that maybe helped to revive it a little bit. And certainly when you have it primed by Ninja Turtles, but that's only to so much, because really Ninja Turtles' biggest, I mean, they were selling over 100,000 copies for a black and white comic, but it was, the cartoon and action figures what really made the money. And that didn't really feed back into comic books at all.
See, I never even knew about comics in the early 90s. Like, that was Teenage Mutant Ninja. Like, I didn't know it was a comic. I just was like, oh, this is my favorite cartoon, and I have the toys.
Oh, yeah. And that's, Mirage didn't start selling 1 million copies of Ninja Turtles. It didn't really feed back that other direction at all.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but,
And collectability is really what fueled all this. We all pretend like the comics were great in the 90s. No, some were, but some are always. I can go to the comic book store today, and most of the comics are, you can find just as many good ones, but it's easy to say the 90s had the Max and the Crow and all this stuff. It's like, well, that's 10 years. Yeah, I can name 10 off the top of my head that was good, but they weren't all on the shelf at the exact same time.
Well said.
And I don't know that. I mean, I quit reading comics in 90. Whenever Bruce Wayne came back from getting his back broke, that was when I left. I was 94 maybe, because the reality is it wasn't SJWs, it wasn't nothing. The industry's been dead for a long time. They were just kicking the dead horse. But they didn't help it up. But then again, who cares? It's dead. But it was redundant. I mean, storytelling matters. It just matters, and you got to write good comic books. And they stopped. Did they ever write good ones? Some people did. I mean, you have the Frank Millers and stuff, but overall, no. Monthly, if you go get a stack of comics this high of 80s and 90s Batman comics and just start reading, you're going to want to skip most of them. It's just kind of redundant stuff. But then you get into the exciting, like Nightfall, which was very exciting, the breaking of the Bat. But when he comes back, you go, oh, I guess that was nothing. I was excited for nothing. And eventually it becomes like the old Batman serials from the 40s. They ended every time with blowing something up and saying, is Batman dead? And in the next episode, he's not. Yeah. How many times can you watch that and still go, exciting? Not very long. Eventually, when nothing matters, you don't want to read anymore. You're worn out.
And that got kind of accentuated in the 90s.
Yeah, definitely.
With the increased interest, the increased sales, and the increased output, I guess. Because talking to Matt Reese about superheroes, I'm realizing that it's not super, like, I thought that I disliked superheroes, and now I'm realizing I don't dislike superheroes. There's a lot of good superhero stories out there. I just don't like the American industry, the big two industry, so much. And I don't like, because what you're just describing could have happened with mystery novels or like it could have been any genre, but they just decided to, I mean, this is just the one that grew and prospered and did a particularly American thing here. Everyone loved superhero stuff here. So it had to face the brunt of that kind of endless revisionism and everyone talking about runs and it getting so complicated. Like, people don't even talk about stories anymore. They just talk about, their favorite writers and authors. Like, they talk about the business of the industry as much as they talk about the characters, which really throws off normies. I think they just say, well, that's nerd stuff. It's way too deep for me. Yeah. Like, I just want to have a fun time. And it sounds like you guys have been arguing about,
right.
What happened to Spider-Man in 2008.
Right. And
you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And certainly the fandoms, and I think that is, kind of the point. Yeah. It's the same thing happened to the movies, I mean, you look at the late 80s, early 90s, you had Aliens, you had Predator, you had RoboCop, and you had all these massive franchises and Lethal Weapon. It was a heyday. In the 80s, you had your Back to the Future and stuff. And then all of a sudden, mid-90s, it just done. It was done. And almost everything. If you look at 95 to 2000, there was no entertainment worth watching or listening to or anything. Kurt Cobain shot himself, comic books imploded, and Terminator 3 came out. I mean, it was, and it is,
Very
people go,
persuasive.
yeah, half of the 90s was really, really good. And then all of the United States got addicted to heroin. And it just went to, I mean, it was Spice Girls and all that. And Limp Bizkit ruled.
Oh, I was waiting. I was gonna insert some rap rock, but you did it for me.
And that is a perfect example of there's an ebb and flow. It's all natural, and it's probably why planning and arguing doesn't really matter, because nothing's in control. This is it's like a flower. You plant the seed. You can argue about how fast it should grow. It's just nature. It'll do whatever the hell it wants. But and comics are going through some sort of either it's death or metamorphosis. I don't think comics can die like, I think YouTube and some things like the hey, stop that, the YouTube streaming, like game streaming and stuff like that.
Sure.
All those things might come and go. They're young and they haven't proven their worth. Whereas comic books, being around so long, can't go away, have the likelihood of the medium going away is almost zero. Marvel and DC, well, that's more likely. I'm almost inevitable once it becomes, they only want the IP. They have all the IP. All the new IP they've created is worthless.
But they have 80 years at this point that they can pick through. And like you said, every decade's got some gems. So.
Yeah. And I just had the greatest idea the other day. This is totally off subject. I'll just go through it real quick.
Yeah.
It's how I would fix DC Comics right now within a couple of months. I'd have Batman like doing detective work because something's all crazy about the DC universe or whatever. And come to find out, everything that's happened in the past like decade was this night terror because he was poisoned by the Scarecrow. And you just retcon the whole goddamn thing. But anyways.
So, I don't know how they're going to fix themselves because I don't think it's something that's, I don't know. Like there's something so peculiar about telling stories in comics in America that there really isn't an equivalent to that I can find in our country, in other countries, and other mediums in comics in other countries. It's twisted itself into such an interesting knot that only people like age maybe 35 to 55 have really been able to track with successfully. I feel like I don't know how you undo that Gordian knot, So.
And I think that the mainstream industry, I mean, that thing's been a natural disaster for a long time. It's almost just inherently a bad idea to have two of the largest conglomerates on the entire planet control a dead industry. Obviously, they're not going to be super into it. So it's only a matter of time before they dip out, probably to some degree, or try to do something else. But I mean, if you look at TV, they've had a lot of the same struggles that comic books did, where they had these highest highs and then lowest lows. They adapted, and comics refused to. For instance, I can't write a 20-page comic book. If so, it would be like a short. Like I wouldn't call it a comic book. Well, for instance, my Saving the Universe, I just gave that thing away with my Indiegogo. You got to pay for it on the Kickstarter because it ended up being much larger. But it's 20 pages. But I wouldn't say that's I wouldn't put that on the shelf with a $3.99 price tag. I don't think 20 is enough. DC and Marvel does. The fans do not. They don't. I believe that a lot of the anger and outrage is misplaced, and I find that's almost always true. People get upset, and then they just start sprouting, "Wah!" and rage, and they don't know why exactly.
Well, just so you know, Ichthus in the chat, or Itchy5, however you want to call him, says, "You ever fight a gator?"
No,
Just wanted to.
I've never even seen one. I live in Oklahoma.
Oh no, we got them.
Yeah.
I'll take you. You come down to my state. I mean, we got them in my backyard.
Nice. I ate a gator once. It's dang good.
Aren't they? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
We need to introduce the world to gator eating. That's
Yeah. And shark. Shark
Yeah.
is like chicken, but it's like the best chicken you've ever had.
I don't think I've had shark.
It's really good. I bought fillets once, and I didn't know how to cook it, so I just put it in a kind of skillet and waited,
Oh, nice.
and then just like, and then flipped it, and I was like, it looks like I won't die, and I ate it, and I was like, hey, that's pretty good. I should have wrote down how long
It
that
kind of
was.
looks like tofu to me. I feel like
Yeah.
I will treat it like tofu, but maybe
You-
it's better than that.
It has like, it's white like fish, and you'd think it's like that, but no, it's actually like it's fit like closer to a steak. It's not full on like beef, but
Oh wow.
it's more like it's not flaky at all. It's weird.
Wow.
But
Ichthu says you will be fighting a gator. I don't know what that means. I think.
they have a comic book about gators, and I think they're having me fight a gator in it.
Are you serious? That's awesome.
That's news to
great.
me.
Is that a Corona Kings thing?
Yeah, Corona Kings. It's like the Ninja Turtles, but it's gators.
Oh, beautiful.
And
Cool.
I'm evidently fighting a gator in it, so that's pretty sweet.
Oh, wonderful. But by the way, chat, both Tonic Mole and I are doing Corona King stuff.
Yes.
And I think several people in the chat are also contributing either this issue or next issue. So
Yeah.
it's going to be fun. Yeah. So the cover's blown. We're not mortal enemies.
No, yeah, that's right. Dang it, we were doing so good. We're going to start a Twitter
Yeah.
war. Get rich.
Well, my okay. Like I just wanted to let me see if I can summarize. And first of all, like I want to say, one of the reasons I'm excited about talking with you is because I feel like we're peers in a lot of way. Like maybe there's a class struggle. I'm not sure yet, but you and I we're like in the trenches. We're the four figures folk, which really means we I think we learn a lot the hard way. Like we really pay pennies to get things done, and that's really exciting. You can't throw around money and be sloppy with fans or backers or your money. Like maybe we're thinking some of these professionals. Well, we've seen a lot of mistakes made, and maybe we're anticipating that they think that they're going to get away with more. But I guess just to summarize in a sentence, what my view is that I think the indie, or I keep saying indie, let's just call it the underground or crowdfunded scene is so charged to value respect for backers and people who deliver versus people who don't, and they're not as interested, even as they were in 2 years ago or 1 year ago, even with the professional non-professional divide. That I think he really has his work cut out for him, and I'm a little iffy about his confidence. As good as he is, people are not backing based on art and story. They're backing based on if they can trust you, and that's kind of cool to me. Like if trust is if that's the money in the market, like if that's the currency in our marketplace, that's cool. That's a very human currency. So that's just kind of my thing. So
And he's more in our boat, and I think he thinks he's in more of the what's the good way not to get in trouble? The
King Dingling.
there's groups of people, right, that will support anything, almost literally, and that's a very different market. That the reasons you support things are very different, and that's not right or wrong. I don't care, but it is different. It's like, as a businessman, I know that's not going to work for me. And but if a businessman that can work, then that's all gravy. I'm just in a different market. But if he thinks that's going to be him, he's very mistaken.
Yes.
And I mean, I think you're actually being. His fans are not going hit.
The people who are telling him it's a bad look to make money right now. Yeah, you're right. They're probably gonna never go to Indiegogo to support.
No, and his Batman fans aren't, because they probably almost don't know his name.
Wow.
I think a lot of these mainstream people would be very surprised at how few people know that they actually do something, like what their name is or who they are. I don't think his fans will carry over. So he's depending solely on the, there's this weird gray area of pros who are like, we're not totally okay with everything they say, but we're not going to say nothing about it. You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those guys, and they just ride that wave in between. And honestly, I mean, they make like 20,000 and stuff. And some of them, I mean, the biggest ones who have, again, YouTube shows, there is not a single one of them. The only person I know that can flat-footed make that money is Polito. The guy does not interact with people at all. He'll post a video where he's like, we're going to do it. This was banned because it shows booby. Rock and roll, right? And I love videos, but he's not talking on a live stream. He's not going to do that. Or I've never seen it. He's pure businessman, and then he goes home and does, lives. He's not living for this whole deal. He does his comic book, and then he has his personal life.
And I guess he built, I think if I had my understanding, only finding out about him in the last couple of years, is that he did the Comic-Con market, or just the different comic convention markets for so many years, and he built up that face-to-face rapport, which I guess this YouTube live streaming thing is like a pale, sickly replacement for.
Let's see if he's okay. He's not watching. I met him once at a comic book convention.
Yeah.
He is not the friendliest guy you've ever met.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
Ignored me the entire time, talked on the cell phone. And then his girlfriend, maybe, didn't look like she would be at a comic book convention.
Yeah.
Just sat with her arms crossed staring at me the whole time.
Oh,
right?
no.
And I kind of got a really bad impression. Anyways, but I respect the living shit out of him as like a businessman.
Something's working. I don't know what it is. It's not live streams.
I don't know if it's just Lady Death. I don't know how his comic did sell a lot in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
When he started. So I think just being Brian Polito really helps. Try that.
Yeah.
That really helps. But he has a very, if Todd McFarlane said, I'm crowdfunding this comic book, it would make a lot of flipping money. And Polito was probably, he's a little bit the same way. He doesn't have to, for instance, Robot Frog guy, nobody knew his name till the YouTube channel. It's not like there was people sitting around going, oh, did you see that? Mm-hmm. Justice League something drawn by this guy? No, he was just, he was just a grunt drawing comics like everybody else. It was, the show built it up, but Polito, that's a different deal. He's Brian Polito. And you'd think Sean Gordon Murphy. There we go. He's not. He has more name recognition.
Yeah.
Than most, except for with a crowd that's probably not in crowdfunding. So
yeah,
I'm very interested. Oh, but over the whole debate where I say the pessimistic view is that they all rally together to crush us. A possibility, however.
I really like your theory. I don't, but it's very interesting.
I think if given I think this was to be the summary. My opinion is that if given the opportunity, it would be very bad for crowdfunding comics because they would most definitely find a way to weed out things they don't like. They did it in mainstream comics. It's hence why there's so many people making comics in crowdfunding, because of this whole act of them. And it's not just them. So say Sean Gordon Murphy. Let's say him. You say, well, he's a cool guy. He was going to do that cover for
Dougie T.
And it was. But what happened?
Yeah.
he said, business wise, this ain't cool. I think I got to dip out, and I understood totally. Business move. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Certainly, his DC gave him his own Batverse. That is rare. I think there's two people, him and Frank Miller, who have their own Batverse that they fully control.
Yeah. Well, to be fair to both of them, to Doug and Sean, I get the impression that it's a mutually beneficial relationship to pull that cover.
Right.
Not to be too cynical, but just hearing Doug's side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, he sold more comics by not having a Sean Gordon Murphy cover than he did by having one, I think.
Yeah.
And Sean got to keep his nose clean. So
right. That's probably true. I don't know. It's hard if they could have predicted that, because in hindsight, certainly.
Yeah. No, I don't think it was. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying there was a conspiracy. I just think something blew up, and they were like, you know what?
Right.
It's fine if we break, because it's going to be okay for both of us. I think it just ended up that way.
Because I think there was a number of. I think Doug's fans were excited for the cover, but then again, that don't.
But they were going to buy his book anyway. Yeah.
Right. They were going to anyways.
Yeah.
But whenever there's that whole shenanigans, suddenly that's news across the internet. So it kind of worked out pretty good. But that is a good example of what would be my doomsday prediction would be it's not that everybody is out to go, we need to clean up these indie comics with the booby girls on the front. It's that the ones people would be too afraid to say no, just like certainly almost the majority of people in writers and artists and all this don't like a lot of the stuff happening in comic books right now, in mainstream comic books and movies and all these types of things, in which there is it actually has nothing to do with politics at all. Everybody makes it out to be that, and I think that's actually detrimental because we're not pointing out what's happening. It is, I can't remember the word. Anyways,
yeah, I think you and I agree. That's one of the reasons I like you, because I know that it's not a left-right politics thing.
No, yeah, it's favoritism, and the favoritism's gone both ways. But it is, there are people being given jobs that shouldn't. And it's not because of their political lean. In fact, they just exploit the fact that they're given that position to then try to be cool. They're trying to impress people. If you ever had an English teacher that was like 24 and in high school, and she's like too young to really be with high schoolers because she's only 24 and she's trying to find she was a nerd and she's trying to be cool. That's all this is. There's no politics whatsoever. This is people who need to grow up. They're trying to impress preteens, and that's all that is. They're trying to be cool on Twitter. And
well said. You would see this. They could all vote a different way, and you would see a very similar
if the fad was horrendously the other direction, they would be full on board. It's hipsters. Hipsters do it. Holy son of a gun!
I thought you might want to see this. Oh, look, look at that number. It just keeps going. It went up. I brought it up a minute ago, and it's already gone up $2,000. So this is probably what Sean Gordon thinks he's going to get. I mean, this was a day ago. Maybe it was today this launched. It was because sometimes how Indiegogo does. Or Kickstarter. Only 4K backers, 570. What is that? 4. Did I do that right? Oh my gosh, that's expensive. Yeah, 143 thereabouts dollars per backer. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, and I bet it's it's
so
like
this is just a toy. So it's not, this isn't a comic, and it costs $40 to get the action figure.
Yeah.
But this is okay. So this is your nightmare, I guess. Wow.
you know, and kind of like this, where he's selling a toy that it is a little weird that he owns a toy company that
It is.
currently has the DC license, and I don't quite understand what, it's kind of like when what was it, Burger King or something, crowdfunded something stupid. I forget what it was.
Yeah.
But I don't totally understand it.
I don't get it either.
Why? I mean, to me, there is benefit that he would have never made this much money selling it on store shelves.
Okay,
really.
you should see. Okay, so we're looking at 40 backers, 100 something backers. These are his two. The $80 or more, the autograph classic Spawn figure, he's getting over 500 backers. And then look at this: the highest pledge tier has by far the highest number of backers, $160 or more. This is why it's $143 per backer on average. Over 2,000 backers have bought the $160 tier, which gives you the 3-pack Spawn trilogy with 2 new heads. So you're getting, I guess, 3 figures, 2 bonus heads that you can switch out, and $160. I mean, we're already shilling for them. I bet there's a couple people in the chat are going to buy this just because we're talking about it. But it is cool, and this isn't something that we have access to. I mean, this is why I don't know how much it's a class thing, because you and I, frankly, we don't have access to the people that he does, and I don't people can freely give us money for our comics, but we couldn't even begin to make an action figure, and he obviously invented the adult action figure market. Yeah. So he can do this easily, and people, and there's a credibility there, I guess, of 30 years of being awesome, and so and he still has that punk rock appeal, even though he's not. He's the man now, but
right, yeah.
But he still feels that way. So he can show up on Kickstarter, and it feels like, oh yeah, man, it's like the '90s all over again. So the customer is still winning. You know what I mean? Like, they're getting a Spawn figure. I couldn't provide that, but he could. You know what I mean?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, and it's not that, for one thing, it is an action figure, so that's different. Todd McFarlane's different. He feels exactly the same as I do about probably everything. He hates mainstream comics as much as anybody. I mean, when all the others were ditching and going back to Marvel and DC, like, man, he was seething.
Yeah.
About it all, because he was like, they are the enemy, where our mission is to destroy them because they're horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the end, they kind of fix things. Comic book creators at DC and Marvel are treated a lot better than they were back when those guys were working for them.
Yeah.
You get royalties and you get all that crap. And so, things are considerably better there. Arguably, I think that it is that, you make a good point that it's probably my worst case scenario. It would be hard to work. It would be hard for it to fill out because of just the inherent unlikelihood of them, most of them, if any, succeeding in this situation. Because the ones that succeed now, like Polito, he's never worked for anybody but Polito. And so he's more closer to one of us than he is one of them, working for DC or something.
Definitely.
And it's his IP. That's another thing. He has this established, marketable IP and all this type of stuff.
Yeah.
He's not just kind of throwing out I had an idea for when I was drawing Batman. I always wanted to do a classic horror comic or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
He has established stuff, but and and there's a lot of pros that I would exclude. Even Jimmy Palmiotti has all of his IP and stuff like that, and every once in a while he kickstarts and stuff, and it's like $24,000 on his Kickstarters and everything. And I don't see
Rob Liefeld only made, what was his, like in the 30s or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And and I don't think it should be like the whole, anybody who's ever been related to had anything to do with Marvel and DC should be shunned.
Yeah.
But I feel that creators need to be careful because there's a lot of hero worship currently in indie comics that has really held it back. I see more people selling Robot Frog comics than their own comics. And that's a cold, hard truth that there is one comic that really gets pushed and nobody else's is. They all feel like they're in a club and they're not. They're in a club of one, and that comic gets sold and theirs doesn't. And there's a few people in the inner circle and stuff, but it isn't all for one for all at all. It is to sell the mainstream comic book. It's no different than DC Comics. Going, DC Comics said that if I draw and write for free for 6 years, I might get a real job. It's like just giving it. There's no big deal. They took the exact same formula and moved it over to where, hey, if you're a real big fan of Batman, you might get a T-shirt someday or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
Anyways.
No one. I've been around. Trying to think of I've never heard anyone say that. I've never heard that take before. So that's actually really interesting. I do have to think about that.
That's my super hot take.
That's a good one. You've had several tonight. That's probably my favorite personal bet.
Now I see this all just from the outside, and so it may or may not be correct or incorrect. And I hate to villainize people that I don't know, but from what I see, that seems to be a lot. See, because all these things that say, every time I see the hashtag comics are for everyone, I see one. It's like, oh, you should capitalize one and put it in quotes. And comics are for one. But no, I see this thing. And I wouldn't even say that it's inherently any one person's fault. It's not. It might not even be malicious. It is inherent to fanaticism and fandom that everybody rallies around the king or whatever it is, or the person they think. And when politics are involved, it's much worse. And everybody says indie comics, and it's like, that's not what this is. I don't know what this is, but it's one thing, a dangerous fad or trend that could disappear at any second. And I would hate, and with the only reason I'm concerned is because I've found so many people who are so good at comic books that haven't broken the 4 figures. And some of the best comics arguably haven't. And so we're not seeing quality rise. We're seeing who got the fanaticism behind them to sell comics based on, if you don't, and I mean, you look at mainstream comics and they go, well, if you don't buy Squirrel Girl versus Nazis, Donald Trump wins. And people go, well, this comic sucks, but I don't like Donald Trump.
Yeah, I need to make a statement, so I'm going to buy Squirrel Girl.
Right, I got to. This is terrible. And then, and then on the flip side, they go, well, Nancy Pelosi is going to win unless you buy my comic that's, drawn by my 5-year-old. And so, that's been popular this past decade of low quality content being sold based on the idea that your enemy wins if you don't buy it.
Yeah.
Disney has built a massive empire somewhat based on that. I would never argue. I like a lot more Disney things than most people I know, but still I've seen, and it's not just Disney, it is almost all movie plays have tried that. What was that? Charlie's Angels. Obviously, it wasn't a quality movie that they focused on or anything. And then, and a lot of this stuff, it's marketing. It's the marketing that's bad. You go see Captain Marvel. It wasn't a good movie. It was lower quality than most of the other Marvel movies. Mm-hmm. But like I go, haha, it's funny. There's like the Skrulls. The Skrulls guy, and he's sipping the drink and stuff, and one got his head in the toilet. I thought that was hilarious. I kind of liked the movie. I'll only watch it once, but it wasn't that bad. There was nothing in it political whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like if someone who was if one of those people who can like dissect anything watched that, authentically looked at it, they'd go, it's all racist and sexist or whatever, because it was just a normal movie. The marketing was not, though.
Yeah. Well,
and so
people thought, I guess, the idea good marketing means you're going to try to take the safest approach to marketing. And in 2018, it still felt like marketing this means showing it to be an activist movie is the safest way to market it. And
well, see, and that's where I'd say that's where, kind of like when I say business is business.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend like certain comics didn't very much succeed in huge ways, and that's business is business. My only argument is in the future it might not be sustainable. That would be it. Not condemning anything, because in the end, everybody who said Captain Marvel, this is all a bad idea, was wrong. They made a mediocre movie and it made over $1 billion. They win.
Yeah.
End. It don't matter. Their marketing was correct. All that stuff they said that teed everybody off inspired, this revolution to go see it and boost a movie that shouldn't have made that much to do so.
Yeah.
And
it was sensible. If you're talking about dollars in the bank. Yeah.
Right. And the reverse is also true, that if there was a group who wanted Joker to not make over $1 billion, the last thing you want to do is say, we're all going to go shoot up people when we see that movie. That movie was not going to make over $1 billion. That's insane.
Yeah.
It was destined for 600 to 700 million. It's a Batman movie. It's not going to go under 5, but that was its destiny. And so, it is ironic that you see that it is not about politics. It's about behavior. And that I think I thought I saw you somewhere that said, what'd you say?
Like authoritarianism versus libertarianism, maybe, or professionalism
it's not
equals you're a professional if you act professionally.
Kind of like that we are attributing things falsely to these ideals.
Yeah.
For instance, people will say there's JW versus whatever.
Mm-hmm.
All wrong. There is society. Society behaves as society does, just like whenever Captain Marvel said one thing and people attacked it, and then the other side defends it and all goes sees it, makes money. You take the exact same dynamic and you twist it around, it works exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
The defenders come from the other side and do the same thing, because society is society. There is no left or right to society. We make that up. It's fictional. But society always reacts the same way, does the same thing, regardless of what they claim. They are just as judgmental, just as hateful. Everybody hates free speech that they don't like. And that is let's say 99% of people hate free speech they don't like. Now, I don't like free speech that I don't like.
Yeah.
But I am very much for it all.
Yeah.
And so
it takes a decision on your part. That's not an instant.
Right. I have to use logic and say, well, if I let them say that, I can say this. And that's how it goes. That is not normal. And there is no political side who likes it. And there is no political side that's even in favor of it, let alone supports the idea, because I've seen everybody have an excuse to why to censor somebody or not let someone say something. And it feels right to them because it's not malicious. Everybody authentically thinks they're morally correct, that they have a justification for it.
Yeah. And well, and I think trying to think through your thoughts after you. I guess one of the issues, at the end of the day, we've got, okay, this is how I'm going to collapse the professional idea again. I think people like you and I, the Four Figures guys, I think the way we respect customers is to act like like Walmart, like the quote unquote big guys, and they're doing things well, which is we're not here to we're not checking your politics at the door. We're not checking, we might disagree with you, but we're here to make you a quality comic that you can rely on. You're going to get it on time at an affordable price, and then we'll send you off with a smile. That's the Walmart way, and that's what you and I are doing. And that's not a professional. I mean, I think that's professionalism at its essence, but that's not like a you don't have to come from the big two to do that.
No.
So I think like the longevity, like, and we've already seen it in 2020. I think a lot of people have demonstrated, like Doug T in the chat, that if people who are here to buy comics, like they have been in the last 10 years in crowdfunding, to pre-order stuff that they want to support, they're gonna naturally, freely filter themselves towards those creators who are putting the books first, and the people who are more interested, and there's going to be a blend, everyone in between, but people who are more interested in the YouTube content, which I think is completely valid too. It's not something I'd want to make, but I understand it's a different market. And if you're going to make merchandise called a comic book and sell that as a side gig to your YouTube show, I think that's people are going to flock to that, and it's a very effective approach, and kudos to them. Like, so I think it's just going to more decentralize. Like, we just kind of felt like everything was really centered around a few people, and it kind of was, because that's all the oxygen was about, like half a dozen people for a year and a half, and now it's blown up, and now we're back to where it was pre 2018, where there's a bunch of guys like you and I who are schlepping it through four figures and doing decently, I guess, and making connections, making friends, learning things, and fulfilling orders just like we normally would. And that's probably going to be how it is in the future. And there's probably going to be people who are going to rock the boat, like Sean Gordon Murphy and but I don't think they're going to make, I don't know. No, it's going to be interesting.
I'm going to have to agree with you there, because when I know it's no fun, but when you look at it, no, that is true. That in the end, that's not going to work. It is no different. Oh, I had this example from the very beginning when we were talking, and I saved it. Good deal. So remember, I don't know how old you are, but back in the
34, I think.
You're almost old enough. Yeah. So back when grunge was starting.
Yeah. I looked
Kiss.
Up to it. I wanted to be a part of it, but I was too young.
Yeah. Kiss, I was just barely. I was 14, so it was okay. So Nirvana and Pearl Jam, all these guys that look like this, they big deal all of a sudden. Now, keep in mind that seconds before them, Poison and Whitesnake was on the hips and lips of America.
Yes. And
all of a sudden, these, normal people come out and go, and whatever they do, and they just blow them away out of the water. Now, if you're super rich, you don't just let them blow you out of the water. You try to jump on that new thing. And Kiss took off their makeup. They're really ugly guys. Yeah. And so they took off their makeup and wore like grunge clothes and stuff. And it was the new Kiss, right?
Yeah.
Trying to hop on the grunge bandwagon.
I've heard about
the
this.
thing.
Yes.
It just don't work like that. Even the king of metamorphosis, David Bowie, he survived. He was started in the hippie, and then there was the glam rock. And when glam rock faded and disco became a deal, no problem. He's David Bowie. Yeah. He just did disco. The guy was unstoppable for decades. Grunge happens. Grunge was anti-mainstream. It don't matter who you are or what you do or how you try to cater. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And he did more of a Marilyn Manson type thing, where it was like black. He looked like he was the Crow. He was dressed like in leather. He didn't have makeup on or nothing. but it was supposed to be a grungy look, and it was a more rock album than he had done in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He just thought, I evolve like I always do.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but this movement isn't about that. It's specifically against that. We are rejecting it's the little man's turn for a hot minute, you know? It's not your turn, and so go away for now.
And
And
sounding pretty consistent, and that's the mark of an argument that usually convinces me. You got me thinking.
and see now, and so that's my deal. It's not that it will happen.
Yeah.
It's that I feel for the people I know, the really good comic book artists that have something to say, that have a unique vision and unique art. They're not just trying to replace Marvel or be like Marvel or anything like that. This is like to where you were doing this before, this wasn't a new thing for you. You didn't see a community and go, I'm going to learn how to doodle. This was your passion, a thing you do that you can't stop from doing, Yeah. And
So that's the hallmark of an underground guy, I guess, right?
Right. You did it anyways. I got tons of comics never published.
Because that sounds like Doug Tenable, for instance. That describes him as well as you and myself.
Yeah.
And yet he's got 20 years of working for the man, but it's not working for the man that makes you the professional that you're wary of, right?
Because Johnny Cash was still popular during the grunge era. Some people
I see what you're
transcend, and it isn't really up to any one person. Society does as they want, and so they'll pick who they think fits their whatever they're doing.
Because I guess Johnny Cash he stayed who he was, whether it was popular or unpopular, I guess.
Yeah, he always flipped the finger anyway. So even when they were part of it, if you completely sell out, it's really hard to buy back in after the fact, And so there's a little bit of that. Now, is there some sort of movement that in comics that will happen? Maybe that is what just happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping so, because what I saw wasn't enough for me. Nothing broke out. There was it felt more like the primordial, like before a huge explosion that is remembered for a long time, like with grunge. Before grunge, there was Sonic Youth and a lot of bands in the mid to late 80s that looked like them. It was a little bit different once it happened. I'm hoping something like that. But the point being,
I don't think we're quite there yet either, but we're like in the pre-stages. Yeah.
Right. A bigger fandom, and not just bigger fandom, but a fandom that doesn't buy our comics because they're rebounding on Marvel and DC.
Wow.
It can't be because they go, Marvel and DC are mean to me, and I'm going to make them jealous by buying this crap comic by some idiot called Tonic Mo, and that'll make them jealous, and then they'll make the comics I want. Well, no, I ain't no rebound girl.
That's amazing.
They need to buy our comics because they go, well, I mean, I was really into DC and Marvel, but these guys know where it's at. We need that. We don't need a bunch of people who just butthurt. We need a fandom to grow because of us, not because of DC Marvel. And it'll be a combo a little bit because, I stopped reading DC and Marvel because I got bored and then found underground and indie. But even when I kind of liked early 2000s, there was really good people like Grant Morrison and a guy I forgot his name. I think he did Madman. Something. Anyways, he did that Statics, and there was tons of these weird, quirky comics at Marvel and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked them. However, I would always go, yeah, but they ain't the Mask. I don't know if you've ever read Dark Horse's the original Mask run.
No.
Haunting. Now, you got to ignore the movie was not even, it was barely based on it, but it's this hyper violent, and it has this feel that you just get nowhere else. And it's weird because that comic book is reflecting what's happening right now, and nobody's wanted to adapt it for real. So Stanley Ipkiss, gets the mask and it gives him power, and it goes to his head almost immediately in the first issue, and he just starts murdering the teacher that was mean to him in school. They have him where he's like, I bonk him on the head. Well, he ripped their head off in he actually stomps his foot. He curb stomps the teacher. And I think they make it all funny. And anyways, it's very he starts wearing military gear, like camouflage, and is sitting at watching the TV, writing a list of people to kill. And his girlfriend has a gun and shoots him and kills him because she knows he's gone insane. But he wasn't like that. He was a really nice, humble guy before he got the mask. That's the first issue. Stanley Ipkiss dies in the first issue, and it's actually the detective from the movie. He's the mask, actually, and he fights the mob and all this stuff. Anyways, it's cool. Some of the best art you've ever seen is Doug Moench, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Anyways, that's a little off topic, but
I like it.
Those comics, there is no DC Marvel that's as good as, say, like my favorite indie. The environment isn't there for that to happen. And so
if I can find a way to agree with you here, I think maybe the YouTube, this unprecedented YouTube thing that we all discovered is allowing everyone to feel indie, I guess, that underground sense of we're just a guy in a basement hanging out, and we're chatting about stuff, and we're saying what's on our mind, and sometimes we piss people off, but we're just being real with you, which is like those guys on Hate Street in the 1960s, and that's a very underground feel. So but literally anyone can do that, and I guess, but I don't know. See, I'm trying to. We've avoided gatekeeping this entire time, and that's the only time I'm saying it is to acknowledge that we've avoided it. But the customer is just choosing what they want to watch, right? So if they want to watch a guy who did Green Arrow, what is it? Flash Lantern Ring guy. And they like him, and now they want to see him just hang out. Right. I mean, who am I to say, like, I never made them Marvel comics, so who do they, they don't care about me.
Right. And I mean, we can't gatekeep. So my harsh opinion on that, on like the flood of professionals directly from DC and Marvel, isn't you shouldn't buy their comic or anything like that. It's merely my personal feeling is I have no interest in it, mainly because they will never talk to me. They will never be like, oh, hey, Tonic Mall, what's up? No, that's not ever going to happen. They are not me. They will never have anything to do with me. They're on a whole nother level. They won't like me or listen to me. So I have as much interest in them as they have in me.
Well,
and so
I think a lot of people, I think everyone in the chat likes you. We got Ezra saying he backed both our stuff, but
nice.
He says we're both engaging people and producing projects that speak to him for different reasons. Just pointing you out, I think I don't know. There's something about you, Tonic Mole. I think you've had like 4 or 5 takes this night that I think are actually not derivative of someone else's video from a week ago, which I think is pretty rare.
I don't watch YouTube videos. That helps.
That's very helpful. Wow. You heard it here, folks. Like, if you want to have original thoughts, maybe don't watch as much YouTube.
Don't watch YouTube videos.
Oh my goodness.
And I don't watch, now I've tried to be like this my whole life, but there's times if you let it, too much, you get overcome. We can only deflect so much. Someone doesn't have to purposefully brainwash you to do it. You just get into a herd mentality. And that was, a few years ago, I got into it and it just drove me crazy. And I was like, oh, hold on. I don't think I've been fully thinking. And what it is, it's just reactionary. You're not saying what you, you're not explaining how you feel. You're saying what you think the other person needs to hear. And so, you know, if someone says, hey, you know what, I think the best number is 7, and you know that the best number is 5, you're like, yeah, but if I say 5, they'll say 6. I'll say 1, right? So it's reactionary. I'm not saying what I think. I'm saying what I think will help them get to where it is. The problem is that gets out of control.
Then they say
you know?
10, and then
right. They react in a complete opposite. Now these people, by the end of the night, go, I will die for 10, and they're like, well, I'll die for 1. Neither believes it.
Yeah.
But we'll die for it because it's just human nature. You know, it's nothing. It's just what it is. It's how humans react, and we have to. You know, there's tons of things in life that we have to not do that we'd want to, you know, because we're civilized or whatever. And we say, well, I can't just go on instinct. Like, I want to murder that guy. I won't, you know. And it's as simple as, you know, where you we behave traffic signs. And I'm sure there's a time when you go, I should go faster. No, I'm just going to obey the speed limit. And there's things that, you know, instinctually we want to do things that we do. This I got the physical prints in. They're here.
Yeah, cool.
They turned out really good. I used mix them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, crazy good. The covers are
that's thick.
Yeah, heavy as hell. I think it's 100 pound, which I had no idea. I don't know paperweights. So it's 70 inside and I think 100 cover. And it's a lot thicker than I thought it was going to be.
That's beefy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are
and
solid numbers.
And their lowest interior is 70. They don't do lighter. And I think their lowest cover is 80. So they don't really do the real cheap floppies. And it was like a high gloss cover, so it almost looks like a plastic cover.
Yeah, I like that shine. Yeah.
But it was the cheaper place too. And like all the edges are like dead on. So all the trims were really good. I was crazy impressed because I've seen people use other places like I forget. I forget the other place. Anyway, there's the other one that has the Indie World, and theirs was actually more expensive than
is it Print Ninja?
No, it's something like sounds like it'd be like Kablam.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
I think it is Kablam because I use their for unknown reasons. I use their template, but I print at Mix'em.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just
Ezra in the chat says, Tonic Mole, as I mentioned before, your book appealed to me because it seems fun and because I miss fun black and white comics. I would have likely not backed if it was colored. So there you go. That's a big endorsement.
A lot of people was like, you know, I don't know if a black and white comic can succeed at all. And I was like, well, I don't like color. I read color comics, but it's like my how I'm particular about my personal what I'm creating. I just don't like it. And it's mainly because I think of myself as a dumpster comic book artist, so I want it as cheap as possible. Like if anything's not necessary, I don't really want to do it. I want it to be a really nice, high quality comic, but I try to go on the cheaper end because nobody's ever going to go, ooh la la, that Tonic Mole's a real fancy pants. It's not really my art style or anything, you know. I'm just, I do what I can with what I got. And so it would only highlight. And you know, here's another tip. Anybody that makes comic books, especially like you know, there's different levels, but there's a lot of hobby. It's kind of new hobby comics where, you know, it's not really writers or artists making comics. And that's a very new, cool thing because they can actually get them out there also.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah.
Here's my hot tip for everybody. Know your limits and know what your art kind of looks like your skill level, because too many people I see, you got to be really, really good to use like really exact font. I see that a lot where they use like professional font and stuff.
Yeah.
If the art isn't professional, it looks crazy.
It looks like it's not as finished. But if they had lettered it, it actually might look.
It only highlights their problem. It's like taking a ruler and doing a straight line and then doing one by hand.
Wow.
You know the difference between the two. It drives me crazy. It's a pet peeve.
That's a great
everybody.
I mean, the lettering. I mean, it's part of the composition. The finished page includes speech bubbles and letters, and that is part of the composition. So you have to incorporate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that, I think that hobbyists, not a lot of people are giving hot tips to them. Now, if like someone who's a little bit, what's the word? Like mid-grade on up, I would say go check out Terry Moore. His videos he posts every Sunday. Man, you'll think it don't apply to you, and by the next day you just had a epiphany but that guy is, and he's so counter to me. Like I don't have. I wouldn't say I don't love the craft, but I don't like. No, it is the craft. I like making comics. I like drawing, but the craft is different. That is where you say, I draw on paper. I'm not a peasant drawing on a computer, right? You're the hipster, the hipster, records is how you listen to music, that type of thing.
Yeah.
He is very much that, right? Everything. He hands letters, everything on paper. His piece of paper is his finished comic. There is no digital. And he then, scans it and sends it to like, if it's in color, someone else colors it and stuff. But and they probably do it digitally. But he is all about the craft, like the paper.
Yeah.
Like he can do it. If he could take pulp and make his own paper, he probably would if he had the time.
I love that.
But yeah, he loves, and I'm not that person at all. I'm the farthest away from that. But I love seeing people who love that craft that much.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the equivalent of that, but on a computer.
Right. Exactly. And he has that love of the fine craft, but he analyzes everything to death. Why you draw this way, why you draw that expression and all this stuff. Anyways, he's really helpful. However, for hobbyists, he's maybe too far down the line because he's not really addressing their certain problems. And, and like my best advice is that you're only and this gets back to black and white or not, you're only good as the last step you did. So say you're like, I'm a great penciler, but I'm a terrible inker. You just made terrible art. You can't pencil your way. You already did the pencils and then you put bad ink on top. The same as with color. If you're a great penciler and a great inker and a terrible colorist, you created terrible art. And so you really have to balance those things out, So if someone's a better penciler, they need to really focus on that, not get crazy with the ink. And in fact, their ink stays strict to those pencils because that worked, and not to get too crazy.
Or if I can, like, okay, here's punk rock for you. You go to other countries, you don't necessarily need to have an inker stage, but that's just the peculiarities of the sort of brand look that we developed here. We really liked spotted blacks a lot, and it was limitations of printing at the time on cheap, newsprint and all this kind of stuff. And now we don't need inkers, frankly, but we appreciate that style. It's not a necessity now. Now it's just a style thing. Brian Ball wants he's got another reason why he backed your book. 2 reasons: gingers and boobs, and damn it, I want to see more of them. So,
hey, I'm drawing boobs much better lately.
Oh yeah,
and gingers in general. No, a lot of like my first comic. I have a feeling people might read my first comic, and I mean the art is passable, but they might read the second and go, "What in the hell did he do?"
Yeah,
I drew on paper my whole life, and had to learn how to do it on digital because it's impractical to do paper. Anybody that does it, I think they're insane, because I'm like, man, that adds so many steps.
Yes.
It's so much slower.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I wanted to do it because, to sell original artwork. It's just, I can't. Because I need to move to a bi-monthly, if not a monthly schedule in the near future, whether that's practical or not. But I'm going to try.
That's awesome.
And so,
do that? Oh man, that's Brian
Yeah.
Ball levels. That's insane.
I think I can I can definitely keep up with it. All that matter is if I go broke, because I'm out of work now, but I applied for every government thing there is.
Yeah.
And I made decent money on issue number 1. There's a lot of costs. I made profit. That was cool.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. I didn't make profit.
Thinking a little bit, my deal, I hire a cover artist was mainly that. And then Saving the Universe was I had a year ago dreamed of doing Saving the Universe because I have a massive story arc. That's far more complex than you're going to think there is for for Saving the World with or with the ginger and big boobs and stuff. But it's a lot different tone. But once anybody reads Saving the Universe, I think they get it introduces that this isn't Saving the World will always be Saving the World, though it's a little bit more of a, like MASH, when it was funny, but then they had the serious episode.
Yeah.
Saving the World would definitely be like that. I think the first one is, I have a board up here with all my plots. Issue 4. It's still funny. I mean, it's because, Saving the World is that's the part of the point, is that there's comedy, but action and stuff. But it gets it's the first introduction. Oh no, I'm wrong. 3 is actually kind of pretty. Issue 3 introduces that this isn't always just comedy, that there's drama, and these girls' lives are not just bonk them on the head and little stars or something, that this, it gets more serious. And but because all the comics I did before are super depressing, the first comedy comic I've ever done my entire life, I think. I did a few, but they were late 90s, so they're hyper violent. That was off-putting. Yeah. But I never did a lot of comedy. And so I wrote the scripts for these, and I was like, hey, that's pretty, because I like comedy and superheroes. Because I think if you take superheroes seriously, boy, when it's super serious and there's a guy in a cape, there needs to be a little bit of levity. But anyways.
Exactly.
Oh, but Saving the Universe, I dreamed of doing it, but I was like, well, if this works a year or so, I'll start introducing that there's more than just Kira and Nora. But then someone said, you should do an ash can stretch goal. And I was like, well, I got this guy who's going to do a short. I was going to put it in Saving the World, but I'll just put it in an ash can. And then I had another guy. He said, oh, I'll do this and all that. And then I was like, I'll do one. All of a sudden I had 20 pages. And so I was like, and then the prices are the same. Like an ash can, I don't understand at this point, because I priced them, and it's like, you're not saving. I mean, you're saving a little, but you're talking like $10 between a full-size comic and an ash can. So other than page count, like if you have the page count, you just do a full-size comic. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it ended up that I did 2 issues at the same time, Saving the World and Saving the Universe. And so that really checked one more off to where I introduced 3 more of my characters. Well, there's a few in the background, but you got to find them.
You should DM Brian, because he's you can read that yourself. That's pretty awesome, Brian. I mean, he's a huge believer in what you guys do, so it's really cool.
I do need donated stuff. I got, and I'm glad, because I had a little bit of money built up to start.
Nice.
So I could hire some people and stuff. But I certainly
do have to front load things. I had to pay people to do comic posters and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And see, I got another gig, and my climb back to comic books was kind of a weird one, because I was doing mods for The Sims 4, and
started.
Yeah,
I saw that on your bio. I didn't know.
Yeah, kind of. I just make the mod and I started making it, but it's really complicated and really hard to do. And I was like, no, I don't. I like to figure out a mod, but I'm not going to spend, a huge amount of time, which ended up I'm still doing it. And it's been like 2 years.
Oh, cool.
I got to replace every animation in the entire game. So anyways, some guy's like, dude, there's a lot of people that pay you to work on that mod. And I was like, no, they ain't. So they said, no, start a Patreon. And I promise. And I don't make a huge amount, but I make enough that I realized making a comic book and crowdfunding it would be totally plausible because I could pay for the comic to be printed. Even if I only sold one, I got the money to do a small print run.
That's all.
And so there was because I think I was too afraid that I'd get, my biggest nightmare would be that I promise something and then can't fulfill it financially for some reason. Which comics are pretty cheap, so that's a little unrealistic. But I panic about everything. But
yeah.
Oh, but yeah. And I think that all these types of things, budgeting and hiring and stuff, people got to be, I see a big problem with overspending and stuff, and especially writers. Writers just got to be more careful. It's unheard of what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're writers in underground comics, hiring out everything.
Yes.
It's amazing. And it's a huge breakthrough. I don't think anybody knows how big of a breakthrough it is for comic books that a writer can do this within that medium. It's not something that happened very often at all. You traditionally, if you weren't working for a major company, you had to be able to write, draw, letter, whatever it is in that comic, you had to know how to do it. And that's not the case, but boy, it becomes a lot more dangerous because your overhead is so high and you have to keep that pretty low. I feel like a writer has to be so much better of a businessman that it's insane. I couldn't do it. I would just completely crash and burn.
Yeah. Well, same. And to be honest, like this is one of the interesting things that's happened in the last couple of years is that there's all these rebounders, I guess, out of the big two who have actually, and this goes for creators and backers, I think the expectation now on what professionalism looks like is I need to hire a team, like something that I think sounds stupid, but it's actually working, so it's not stupid for a few people. Where it's like I need to build my own mini Marvel. I need to build a team. I need a corral of people who can assembly line this thing through. And what's Brian do? I mean, that's what he does, you know? And it's crazy. It's insane. It would be stupid, but it's no longer stupid. I guess because there's a certain level of social media activity and engagement and access that people now have that maybe makes it where you can have that that certain level of visibility that can make it work that maybe 3 or 4 years ago even that just wasn't possible. And there's people who are just cool with they love the idea of teams, which is kind of, I guess that's punk rock. I mean, I never thought it was, but people are, if they're making it work, it's cool, you know? So I don't know.
And I think, I think there's a lot of, and here, some things aren't about money, that Brian said that. 100% agree.
Yeah.
And now, is everything about money? Sure. Should you ever think about that? Not particularly. It is that everybody has, working together is a financially good idea, because, was that united we stand, divided we fall. If there is, say, a bunch of, mainstream moving in, we'll all be fine together. But, it does have to be, cohesiveness. Infighting is where things get dangerous because nobody wants to be a part of that. But, back to the business side, with a lot with like what Brian, Brian reminds me a lot of Polito, to where it shows what organization and business skill can get done within the art world, you know, that you can organize this thing and make something amazing. And I only succeed based on the fact that I can draw good enough and honestly, no, even me. I knew my cover would not sell. That if I drew the cover, it would not sell. And, you know, there's a little bit of people got to be humble sometimes and know the reality of their situation. Ego gets me a long ways, but my ability to know my limits is very, very important. Because I knew I needed Monk on that cover. He could do that cover thing. And I am not a cover artist. I am pretty much an interior artist. On little side projects, I'll do my covers and stuff like that. But, you know, I have to be realistic that I need an image that punches him in the face. And I don't even do color well at all. So I'm going to have to hire that. And so... yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, just because not everything is about money, that doesn't mean you throw away money and work for free, but building relationships and working together. That's exactly right.
Which is why I think, like, at the end of the day, like, I think there's been a radical democratization of like human access, I guess, to people, between creators and backers and everyone in between. And that's led to a lot of chaos and a lot of money getting thrown around in a lot of chaotic ways. And it's settling now into something that looks more like pre-2018, but healthier, I guess.
And I'm hoping that with the change of the decade, we'll see something new that is slightly more interesting. Because for me, I'm interested in comic books, and I have a list of creators that I'll never say what it is because it'll make somebody angry. I have a list of creators that I say that's where it's at, right? So some of them are creators, like actual full-on books. Some are just artists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But these are people that I go, no, that's like, it's not whether it will become something, it's that it should be. You know, there's these high tier projects and stuff, and that the ingredients are there. The ingredients are there for something amazing. Yeah. And I do not believe the greatest comics are getting always the attention. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think, and there is some of that, you know, you see some cohesiveness happening that's not politically motivated, or to where, you know, I think the more diversity of ideas we get, the better. And that's what everybody's always said. Have we had that? No. We've never had that anywhere. Really, people just kind of splintered off in their own groups. But really, I mean, since I started doing, you know, getting into the comic, when I got here, things were much different. They were much more divided, and it was a lot more attacking. And, you know, I've seen it, you know, it's shifting to where there is a lot more focus on comic books, and this moving towards something that's more interesting, because, you know, in the end, it was pretty interesting what was happening with the rejection of mainstream, which I always support, because corporations don't need our money. You know, they don't need you to buy Batman to print more, because those ads paid for it. It's ridiculous that you even have to pay for them. I mean, come on. We're being screwed so much.
That's a good point.
If I had the distribution network, I could sell this for $2.99 and make a profit, right? Yeah. How? When they do 20 pages and then like 10 pages of ads, if not 30 or 12 or so. Yeah. With a massive circulation, they can't lower it from $30.99. That don't make no sense. And I get that they hire 50 people to print one comic, but then again, that's not my fault. I don't even know why I get a little hateful about some things, kind of like, editors.
Yeah.
Where they're like, my editor is like, why do you even pay for an editor? Read it again and see if you spelled anything wrong. Ta-da! You just did that job and you don't have to hire someone. It seems ridiculous. For a comic, almost nobody will read.
Yeah. Yeah.
A movie, I understand why the credits on a movie is so long. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
But in the words of Tony Sissel, I won't tell you all of them, but he said, man, making comics is easy. If you can't make a comic, you should just kill yourself.
That is amazing. Oh my god.
So
Ichthu says, I love hearing Tonic Mole speak. He needs to do more live streams. Yeah, I really think so. First time I saw him with Doug Garrett, I was like, wow, this guy gotta jam with this guy sometime.
I gotta go back on Doug's. I've been drawing more than normal, which is weird because I had an 8-hour a day job, and then I draw all night.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I had more free time now because I was like, man, I hope I keep up with it. Because, in the past, people think, man, if I just didn't have a job, I would really get things done. And you find out, no, sometimes manual labor or whatever it is you do is a great motivator. And if you don't got it, you're not. No, I draw 16 hours a day. It is. And I tried to stop. I think it's because, there's a whole pandemic thing. And so I'm a little nervous. And so, to cover up my nerves. Oh, and the not job thing.
That sucks.
That gets me. I mean,
Sorry about that.
I'm not doing bad in any way where it's like, I'm actually doing great. Because everybody's like, man, this is the worst, 2020 sucks. I'm like, I'm living out my dreams. At least for as long as I can, I get to say, oh, they go, what do you do for a living? I draw comic books. And that's true. Because that's all I get money for. But and I live off the government, but we never speak about that. I'm waiting for my $1,200. I'm gonna need that.
Sure.
Print.
I think a lot of people are thinking about that. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Or do you think we're gonna see a boost in crowdfunding support, or funding our own crowdfundings when that check?
Oh yeah, we're frivolous as hell. We should all save it because things could get dramatically worse. But we're all going to go, I know, I can buy an $800 action figure. Exactly. Polito, his highest thing is $777. And he has 30 people backing it.
Wow.
On one of the deals. Anyways, but, and I haven't seen anything. A lot of people worried that everybody'd freak out and stop buying stuff. But
yeah, I think people want beauty. They want hope, and and creators can provide both. Oh. They can get you excited about something that they can fulfill. If you back it, they can fulfill it. Conceivably. Yeah. And hopefully they built that trust with you. So it's just about people don't just want to sit and bite their fingernails for weeks and weeks. They want to get excited about something, and that's Western civilization prevailed, and because Western civilization has never, in modern history, really seen bad things, and so we don't know bad things exist. So for us, obviously, in a week or two, the government will fix everything, and we'll go outside, and it'll all be cool. Will it? I don't know. But we're all going to behave like that. There's people now going, what car am I going to buy next month? Yep. I don't know. We are unaffected just because of our security. And that has worked great for the comic book business because my Kickstarter, it didn't take off running, but it's doing pretty good considering. No, yeah.
I assume my entire fan base was the Indiegogo. And so there would be no more possibility. But I thought if I get $200, that's $200. But it hasn't made as much as Indiegogo, but really close.
No, that's great.
It's almost $1,000, and I think I made 1,100 on Indiegogo.
Yeah. So people sniff at my I do about what did I get? Like 1,300 this time around, and maybe I got like 600 the first time on Kickstarter. But that pays for a stretch goal for me. I mean, that's a huge bonus.
Oh, yeah, and see if that's like me. I think people see those 13,000, 20,000, 100,000, and they go, "That's gonna be me." It's like probably not.
No.
And
there's
you got
like 15 people a year,
right? And I had to, I was just curious what my budget is, and my budget, at least in this first issue, I have no idea if I'll have fan retention. You never know till you do it. On issue number 2, but I'll find out shortly. I'm on my way. I'm working on it. I got cover and all that stuff ready, and the interiors, I don't know, a 4th or something. I have scripts for like 5 issues, so I don't have to write, which would be,
That's great.
That was my fear because, is when I got 5 issues written, I think. When I can force a draw, right? I have to go, boobies, right? You just draw them. But like writing, I don't like forced writing because it can go bad. Really, forced art might lack enthusiasm, but it works. But forced writing is it's a disaster.
Yes.
And so, but anyways, I don't know what my next issue will do. I'll be very curious if I build, stay the same, but I adjust for that. I bought covers. I have the next cover by Sashi, and it's already made up, ready to go.
That's awesome.
And
Sashi cover. Congrats.
Yeah. And I got a guy, and Monk does, Illustrator Monk's the coolest damn guy. He does, I paid him to do the cover. He helps me with all types of crap all the time.
Yeah.
And he made a new logo for me that's Vector. And because I had made this one that was kind of based on his art, and I took and all this, but I was the only person that thought it would look fine. But like he was like, "Hey, you want a Vector version of that?" I was like, "What's Vector?"
Oh man,
I work in JPEG, baby. No, but so yeah, exactly. And so all my comics were photocopied before then, so Vector wasn't really a thing. And so he made this Vector deal and all this type of stuff for me that I'm using on issue 2 and on and stuff. But surrounding yourself with friends and stuff that'll help you out and all of this stuff. You don't want to take advantage of nobody, but you got to pay them back and whatnot. That's like Tony Sizzle. He drew a comic. Oh, he drew that sober for me. But then he said, "I want you to write a Western." So I had to write a Western. I never did that before.
Wow.
But
cool.
If he'll draw for me as long as I write whatever it is he tells me to write, which is easier writing. You can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it in an hour, but drawing is much more intensive.
Yeah.
But having those group of people, and I think that's where a lot of these creative things happen. Is in these, when you have a bunch of these groups of people that are working together to do things, and and you'll see those collaborations, and I think those breed really interesting communities, because they see these guys getting along. And
that's really exciting because that's something that's always been around, but no one got to see it until now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was never public until now. So that's the real fun, exciting, unprecedented place.
Yeah.
Right now,
how that hasn't happened on a larger degree until, lately.
Yeah.
When I showed up here, the crowdfunding had been going for quite some time. If anything, it had already peaked or something. And I showed up and I was flabbergasted at what people hadn't done yet. I was like, what y'all been doing while I was, doing whatever I was doing? Oh, yeah, making Sims 4 mods, Because, there was no build up to crossovers or any of these exciting, cool things. And it's just like, what the hell is going on? But now, certainly seeing a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
a lot more community and stuff like that, you know, like everybody rallying around a comic to try to get it funded without some bizarre political agenda or infighting and all this stuff, you know. Certainly there was the rallying. The problem is there was always something behind all that, you know. It was they were doing it out of anger, and I think that, you know, that's the problem. When you're like, I hate this person so much, I'm going to make sure this guy gets funded. It's like, no, you shouldn't do that. You should love that comic or whatever. You shouldn't do it because you hate that one, you know.
I think that was the peak, I guess, is people getting tired of themselves backing content to make a statement, and then finding that and not being sure if the statement was ever made, I guess.
Yeah.
It gets kind of boring.
And, you know, this comes back to what you said about professionalism.
Yeah. Bring it back.
We lived in an era in which professionalism was hated. It was despised because everybody said it was lying, that you should say horrible things because that's true. And so everybody said horrible things. None of it was true. They were just saying horrible things, like a 13-year-old who just learned the F word and he's all excited. That's what it became. But we weren't really getting a lot of we weren't getting any good products or anything. We were just getting these, you know, hateful comments, because in the end, professionalism has to happen on some extent. Even with punk rock, those gears were in the guys' back of the heads of what they were doing.
Yeah.
There was the professionalism there.
I guess we say professionalism, but I guess what we mean is integrity, I guess. Maybe that's the middle way forward. It's not, professionalism doesn't mean pretend to play nice,
right.
And it doesn't mean say whatever the hell you want just because it's honest. And
there's
it just means like being like honestly cool with people.
Right. Well, and you know, and that's true, because it is the fact that you can't fake it. But, you know, there is the tact. Like, you know, people go, well, I told them this because it's true. But it's like, was it necessary for you to tell them that? Was it necessary to say?
Yeah. And we didn't know if we wanted that. I think it took a bit where we were like, well, maybe I do want them to say, I want to hear everything all the time. And,
right.
And now we're trying to find a balance, I guess.
Right. Because, you know, it becomes to where the people who used the salesman trick, you know, of saying exactly what you want to hear. That's the key. It wasn't professionalism or anything. It was saying what you want to hear. And if you suddenly want to hear horrible stuff, they'll say it. You didn't change anything. They just altered their sales pitch to be horrible. But it's not any more true than their last sales pitch that was more clean or whatever. You know, they just learned from what, and, you know, you know, and I mean, we see that when it comes to actual arts themselves, music and all these types of things, to where, you know, you have grunge and you have Nirvana or something like that. And then you have like Blink 182, right? To where they're like, oh, we know what they want to hear. Well, now just refine it so we can make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a little bit, you know, on a different scale of, but, you know, I think I use the word professionalism, but it's tact, just basic tact. And
which it's a very human thing to want that. And that's why I did it, because it's like, now we have all this access. People exploded for a bit, but now we're realizing, at the end of the day, like I want to hang out with cool people, so I want to back cool people. I get to see a lot more people than I thought, a lot more of people than I thought I was going to see, but that actually helps. It helps the backers still be king and queens.
Right,
you know, they're still the driver's seat, because they get to see more than they ever thought they'd get to see in the past. But that helps them decide who is cool and who isn't. And that's who you want your money to go to at the end of the day, is people you think are chill. Even if you disagree with them, again, it's not a political thing. It's
Right.
the integrity thing. So
And you know, yeah, and there is a lot more. The one thing I would say about we do need outsiders, more outsider artists, because currently it is a little bit one-sided, or it's hard to get just a slew of fans in, I guess, because there's these divided sides. And I suppose that's literally everything in society right now, that it's so divided that you don't have the back and forth of just normal people anymore, that, you know, a lot of things. And I think I see that happening, you know. I'm seeing a lot of people that, well, my backers, I don't have a lot of them, but they're a very, very bizarre group of people, right? And they're starting to, you know, I see these people interacting about comics and stuff that normally they would have never interacted, you know. It's a kind of an odd deal.
yeah.
And so I'm seeing a lot more mixture of ideas than a year ago even. I mean, it's been very rapid. It's past 6 months I'm seeing this explosion of people who are from different political backgrounds and all this. Now, I will say they're not from different locations. Everybody I know is somehow a Southerner, regardless of whether they're left, right, or whatever. I think there's...
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
I think it's because we were a lot... it don't matter if you're a liberal or conservative. You were shut out of New York and California, and they don't care. Because, you know, me, I'm a more left-leaning person,
Yeah.
but share a lot more in common with people leaning right because, no, I'm sick of being called because of where I live, right? They're doing exactly what they,
because of, yeah, exactly.
right. And not only that, but the what they think is a lot of the entertainment, what they think is inclusiveness, they don't realize that culture matters, and that when you only show one culture, which is New York and California, because the irony is they don't realize America and our states are different cultures. Oklahoma is nothing like California.
Yeah.
We're like lawless here. We have laws, but they don't enforce them. So that creates a very crazy place, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can drive down the highway in a machine that you built, and you probably won't get pulled over. I saw guys, it was a motor and a frame and seats.
Wow.
And they were just down I-35 and like 80 miles an hour. And that's not legal, but because they're supposed to have a windshield at least, but nobody's going to pull them over because it's Oklahoma. But our cultures are so different. So then when they say, yeah, but there's a lot of different people of different races here, is I go, well, there's mixtures everywhere, but those mixtures matter. If you're showing a certain mixture, you're not, that's a different culture. So here in Oklahoma, there's a mural in my town. They hired these people from another state to come paint a mural, and I don't know who they talked to, but they wanted diversity in this mural. Yeah. And it showed they had like this Asian people and all this. The problem is we have lots of diversity here. They didn't show a single race that we have.
Yeah. So
that matters. It matters. We in Oklahoma, it's Hispanic, white, and Native American.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
That they always ignore those three, and they go for something that's not here. It's like, that's fine and all, but you are excluding that culture because our culture is not Hispanic or white and Native American. It's those three. We are all intermingled together. So our culture is specifically those three mixed together. The mixes matter, and we have not seen that in entertainment in a very long time. They do the same thing, and it's usually for marketing. Commercials where they have like the parent is African American and then the mother is white, or vice versa, and then the kid is somehow Chinese.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I get that they said, what if each of the family members is a different race? We cover a lot more people without used to, or even sometimes now they'll film 2 different commercials with different races to play in different places.
Oh, I bet.
We can show this one everywhere. It's like, yeah, but that is specifically only inclusive to interracial marriages. Those people go, that's my life. But an African American family go, that's totally us, except for the Asian baby and the white wife. No, you don't connect to that. So I feel that a lot of the problem with media and a lot of this is that they misunderstood what was important about inclusivity when it comes to entertainment, that it's our cultures that and all this, and that these things they are doing might work for a lot of people in specifically California and New York, but to us, to the rest of the country, we feel like we're totally thrown out, and that's why you don't see a lot of people go, well, shouldn't there be more support for left ideas with Hispanics? It's like, no, because you excluded everything except for the term Hispanic. It's like you got to care what their lives are like, and most are farmers and ranchers and stuff.
Yeah,
it's not, but they're focusing on something wrong. And
we gotta, like, caring for the poor, I think, is something everyone likes the idea, and I feel like it's not a left-right thing. I hope, but
right,
but it's like, like actually getting to know the poor, or I don't want to say the poor, but just like the people. Maybe it's a class thing. The people who are lower in the class, and that's
right.
You and me.
and I think that there's confusion about what that is, and it's become, and it's politics and media's fault because they don't know. These people have never left Manhattan, let alone gone to any other state, and so they don't understand that the problems they're seeing aren't really what they think it is, because they might look at a piece of paper and said, well, I heard about these 2 stories. It's like, well, there's a lot more happening. And I think everybody's a little bit like that. And that has been the problem in bringing it back to comic books. The problem with mainstream comic books is that all these writers may be different races, but they went to the exact same college and was raised in the same upper middle class family with the exact same experience. The only thing different is this color of their skin, but they swear that they are different because of that. It's like, no, that is not diversity. You are all rich, spoiled kids who only get to write comics because you went to this college, and that they have a placement program that puts you there. And therefore, you instantly get in and tell the same story. There is no diversity.
Skin deep.
Right. There is no diversity in culture within media in general. They're telling the same story from the same point of view over and over and alternating the people's skin color. But living, even part of my family members are Native American and Hispanic and stuff. We all just intermingle and whatnot.
Yeah, sure.
And so our cultures are all super ingrained with each other. In my town, for a long time, we only had 2 Mexican restaurants. We didn't have anything else. And so these cultures get so ingrained. And the odd thing is, you then see people get angry and, but face-to-face people behave differently also. But I never saw these Hispanic families that live here. They're pretty dang successful. They all have companies that they run themselves or whatever. Now it's all legal, immigration and stuff, but they have heavy accents. So, they were born in Mexico. And, but you're not seeing that culture ever even the people for them are saying, anyways, they come over half buck ass naked swimming across the river. It's like, that's not even not even accurate. But my God.
Yeah, I see that too. I'm at the bottom of Florida, and I'm in a town that's majority Hispanic, and
yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of homeowners, and there's all types here. And,
yeah,
and Central American is very different from Mexican, and so it's cool to see that whole dynamic too.
Yeah, and see, and
that's and all that. So
and that's something that somehow during this entire time we've never seen that. For one thing, South America is totally different than Mexico. Mexico has a crime problem, but it's not the worst country in the world. It's not the poorest country at all.
Yeah.
Compared to America, but I mean, everywhere is. I mean, that's not, every other country sucks compared to America. And so Mexico is horrible. But we're not seeing these unique voices not because of race and not because of anything else. It's because of classism. It's because rich people from 2 different states got to write every story for every TV show, for every movie, for every comic book. And there is a show you should watch. It's about comedy, but it works just the same. It has George Carlin, and he talks about this type of stuff before he passed away. Yep. And it's called Are We Allowed to Laugh? I think.
Wow.
It's from 2016. They were exploring the culture within universities, that there was people there that for some of it was, they're hired from foreign countries. And they're implementing these very bizarre things in colleges. And, that's something that was talked about even more. But these people look at it in a much more in-depth type thing. But George Carlin talks about it. And he's on there because it's mainly about stand-up comedy. But it's about the censorship movement. And this was a long time before, everybody freaked out about it, within comics especially. But it goes through it in very interesting detail that it is this classism thing. It was more about the upper middle class and rich trying to censor what was traditionally poor voices, and justifying it by saying, oh, it's because they're poor and white, or it's because it's sexualized, or they always had these weird excuses. And it's it's very old. Tipper Gore is the same thing. These rappers shouldn't say the F word because of this. And so that type of trend goes on way back. But anyways, it's very interesting. And it was, George Carlin says, what caught everybody off guard is that you expect it from the right, you expect censorship from the right. So when it came from the left, not even I was expecting it. Like, it blindsided me. I had no idea it was happening. And
because you thought it was a left-right thing, and then it turns out it's an authoritarian thing.
Right, it's an authoritarian thing, and that is 100% right. That the rich want to control everybody below them, and there is this control thing. And I don't know if there's absolute power corrupts absolutely. So maybe whoever becomes rich suddenly wants to, control people. I don't know. But there is certainly this authoritarian thing that the way they trick us into always falling for it is by switching who's doing it, right?
Yeah.
They have either a political party, or then they have ideologies, or they just steal an entire ideology and shift what it means, because my whole life I call myself a liberal, but in the term liberal, meaning liberally, you know?
Well, you and I, that was one last thing about why I wanted to talk with you. I was born and raised Democrat, and that was most of the people I knew, even in the South, which is weird. I don't know. It was like it was one of these coastal elite towns in the South, I guess. But so it's fun. But growing up in the 90s, liberal meant you were bucking the establishment, and you were still fighting. You were probably raised by hippies, and your idea of liberal meant that you were trying to get more freedom for more people,
Right.
To get more people access to the table, so that they could freely do what they wanted to do once they were there. And the
Right.
term
And
the term may have evolved in some respects,
right. Well,
but our beliefs haven't. So
right. And see, I think that words have labels have shifted,
yeah,
but not what the core is. And now I think it's a little dangerous because political parties have always wanted to control liberal, conservative, and all this, to tell them what to do, what to believe. And that's dangerous because we start to believe things we didn't before because we were told that being a liberal or conservative was predetermined on who you voted for, and that becomes a little dangerous because that's not accurate at all. Certainly politicians will share more in common, but me in the 90s, there was no such thing as a politician that was a liberal. I mean, that's just, they're a politician. It's inherently not liberal to be a politician back in those days. Now, the progressive, that's a whole nother beast. And the progressive has always been a different beast. And I think that one of the most modern things is trying to blend progressive and liberal as one thing.
Yeah.
When it's like, Tipper Gore was a progressive and she wanted to censor rap music. Yeah. And she forced them to put the little explicit thing. However, another liberal is called Marilyn Manson. That guy's a liberal, right? So,
yeah.
And, you see this in all ideologies that there's a, I think that they try to, that whole hyper First Amendment idea is not liked by a lot of people. And so they try to, it's kind of like the cup with the balls under it, the ball under it. They keep it moving so we're confused about who, because heck, right now, a lot of people who might identify conservative, they sound hella liberal to me.
Yeah.
They're about the First Amendment and all this type stuff.
Yeah. And vice versa in some ways. It's like,
oh, yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
Which is kind of the progressive, like everyone thinks we're always arguing about what's going behind us and what's in front of us, like progress is like, well, where are we going to? And conservative, like this idea of what are we trying to take from the past? But I don't know. All I see is like what's right and what's wrong. And are we willing, like, am I going to try and force you? Am I going to try and restrict your freedom in order to get what's right, get more of what I think is what's right out there? And can I even do that without compromising my beliefs about what's right? And if I can say, like, yeah, I can actually restrict your freedoms and give myself more freedoms, in order to further what's right, then I mean, I don't care if you talk about if you're going back in time or forward in time. I don't care if you call yourself a progressive or like, it's just authoritarianism to me. So
and it is all those labels are designed to prevent any type of freedom, and because we can use them to attack each other, and then we think we hate each other because we chose to, because the labels were different, but then you find out, oh no, we believe exactly the same. There almost needs to be a new label that is exclusively, I mean, it's a smaller group, but it is, I am a absolute First Amendment, to where the most horrible thing I can ever hear, even as offensive and horrible, there is nothing too bad, and the first thing people go is child pornography. It's like, well, obviously, but no, don't jump on extremes that are obvious. No, nobody is discussing whether child pornography should be covered under the First Amendment. We're concerned with whether someone can tweet something conservative or what's the other word?
I don't know, right?
Controversial.
Yeah.
Right?
That's more.
They go to these extremes when we're holding on to barely our right to do basic things.
Just to be controversial, yeah. To have party opinions, yeah.
So there's obviously limits to what I think can do, but they are so far beyond the pale that they don't even know, because the people consider like talking about banning hate speech. We obviously can't do it because the whole point, you might as well just not have the First Amendment, because the government can't choose. They already choose enough. They have obscenity laws. And when comic book artists of any, I have zero respect when they start considering hate speech, because there's folks in our position that went to jail. And for them to not know that is sad. There are people, they stormed into comic book stores with assault rifles and raided them and threw all those people in jail for carrying a comic book in the 90s.
I didn't know that.
And so, oh yeah, there's Michael Diana. He drew this comic. It is very hyper violent and controversial.
Yeah. Wow.
And he got arrested in New York, banned from drawing comic books, even for himself. He moved because it was state, but he went to jail for his drawing a comic book, and it was just subversive, very subversive. But it was clearly what the First Amendment was meant for. I mean, it was cut and dry. A hustler is debatable, not to me, obviously, but I understand the debate of this is strictly, clearly just nudity and sex and stuff. Is that covered? I'd say everything is, but I see that there's a debate there. But his was very specifically about, it was anti-culture. It was pointing out horrible things. It was clear what it was. And they threw him in jail for it and banned him from drawing comics. He can't go to the state of New York and draw a comic. Well, I don't think he can go to the state of New York. And this was back in the 90s. Well, there was the federal raids over comic books, where they were storming into comic book stores. And if they carried adult comics, they'd arrest everybody in the store. And
wow.
Hence why...
which was never a problem in other countries, as far as I'm aware. There's always been adult comics and kids comics and everything in between, and it was just understood. Right.
They have, oddly enough, we have more freedom of speech. Now we have more, but we have social boo, 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 and people go, that's my freedom of speech. It's like, well, actually, no. If the government people can tell you they don't like what you say. That's different. And you can even be boycotted, and that's still different if the government doesn't do it. But the government has not, to any real degree. In the past, they've been worse. And so, we're still okay. But you got to be careful, because, if society inherently wants to be safer, not freer. And so they keep going that way, and we got to smack them.
Yeah.
But
and it's a very things are very free right now. They're very decentralized. That's the word I use.
Right.
Really. And so everyone's worried about, how can we make things safer by making them less decentralized? Who can we silence so that we can get things back to a centralized focus, hopefully in a direction that we prefer.
Right. And, reactionary makes people do things that are bad ideas, because I hear bad ideas all from every possible direction. I'm like, oh, yeah. Everybody just needs to chill out. They're upset at each other. This is like husband and wife fighting is what's happening in America right now. There's no good ideas. It's just that everybody's upset, and so they're going to say things that they'll regret later. And so I think that there's the Comic Book Defense Fund, which was created in the 90s because of Michael Diana going to jail, primarily. They realize that comic book artists are not safe. They don't make any money, so they can't hire a lawyer, and they'll just be trampled over. And, video games had a lot of the same problem, but they made a lot of money, so they didn't need a defense fund. They would these huge, gaming companies would just roll in with their lawyers, but a comic book artist couldn't, so they created that foundation. I just wanted to do a comic, like a fundraiser deal for them. Nobody talks about them, but, they're kind of important. And so, anyways, but yeah, they founded that. And, so when I see in modern times actual comic book artists working at DC and Marvel saying, hate speech should be banned, I'm like, really? Really? I mean, because they act like they know about history and they are sensitive to all these things. Yes, we are still on. Well, yeah, I probably got to go. I got pizza to eat. But my final point.
Yeah.
It shows that they are ignorant to the struggles of their own industry. They're sitting there talking about, they can pick anything apart and talk about the injustice in it, but they don't know that the comic book artist is the most abused artist in anything. You can paint whatever you want, but you're a painter. You'll be protected. You can, the music industry will protect you. The comic book industry won't, because one thing, DC and Marvel ain't protecting us indies, but in the music industry, they know if one falls, they all fall. And so, comics are dangerous. Not right now, no. Currently, they're pretty damn safe. But safer than they were in the 90s, and those guys were going, oddly enough, they went further the more. I mean, I don't know if you ever read an R. Crumb comic book.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah. No one's doing R. Crumb.
He broke real laws, and he still got away because of the First Amendment. Like, his obscenity.
I'm sure there were more laws on the books then than now. And yeah.
Right. And so, and he got away. Well, he got in legal trouble, but he didn't go to jail. That I don't think he did.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But those guys pushed those boundaries, and that was very important because speech will never hurt anybody. And even if it does, that's not the point to America. If you wanted to be safe, I'd suggest going anywhere else, because freedom is a very dangerous experiment.
Yeah. And it's usually pretty short-lived usually.
Right. We didn't say you'd live through it. We just said you'd have it.
Yeah.
But so anyways.
Yeah, well said. This has been really exciting. I don't know. Hopefully people tune in for this later on too, because this has been a really good conversation.
We got a good crowd. We got some bigwigs in there.
Yeah, I think we really did. It's cool. Brian Ball, a fan favorite, of course.
Man, they've been talking up a storm, and I missed it all.
No, yeah. No, I tried to throw it up when it was good, and it was usually
good.
But this has been cool. Like, we should do this again sometime, because
definitely. This is awesome.
You've got a lot of really interesting thoughts, and I value them. And honestly, to be perfectly honest, it's cool hanging out with a left-leaning person, because I don't see enough of y'all. And
it's different in comic books.
It's like, oh wow, this is like my it's like my childhood all over again.
Nostalgia.
Yeah.
I'm like watching Back to the Future.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you have a good night, Tonic Mole.
You too.
I'm sure we'll be seeing you on the internets, and for better or for worse, the person that we want to be in the driver's seat. Maybe we don't agree on. Hopefully things will turn out right, but at the end of the day, the people we want to be in the driver's seat are the fans and the backers, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We want the people to have the power, so hopefully it stays that way, and we're going to do our part, I'm sure, to keep it that way. So
definitely
by producing quality content and delivering it on time.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, you have a good night, and chat, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to y'all later.
See ya.